I'm going to tell you a story. And the story of these two beautiful girls. They are sisters. Do they look like sisters? Some people say yes. Well, they are sisters, but not of the same mother. And neither of the same father. They don't have the same mother. They don't have the same father. Both of them were adopted from different families, from different backgrounds, into the same family. Okay? That family was a Seventh-day Adventist family that adopted them. And they already had an adopted son at that point, plus natural children of their own. And then they adopted first one and then the other. So we'll start with the story of that one. Her name is Verónica, and if she wasn't my wife, I'll marry her. She is Chilean. She is very bubbly. She is my wild goat, as I say. You know, if there are a mountain to climb, Verónica will be there. Now, Verónica comes from a family of 5 children. That's a photo taken outside church. So she is the little, tiny little one, the one with the hair like that. That's Verónica. So the oldest daughter was there, and Anita, then Ricardo, Viviana, Eduardo, and little Verónica in Chile. When the 4th child, Eduardo, was born, the mother was already diagnosed with a stage 3 or stage 4 cancer. That means metastasized cancers. That means that you find tumors in different parts of the body. Did I say the 4th one? Did I say that my wife was the 5th one? Now, talking about being conceived in sin or under the consequences of sin. Can you imagine this? I want you to picture this. This is a woman that is pregnant, has the placenta in the uterus, has a baby growing in the uterus, and in the same uterus has a tumor growing at the same time. Talking about the enemy within. Talking about the mother's womb ought to be the safest place on earth. And when she was born, the family thought that the mother was going to die. She actually lasted 2.5 more years. In fact, this is the last photo, and a few weeks after she died. And in Chile, at the age of 30 years of age, a man ended up with 5 children, no social security, no parenting payments, nothing like that. You work and you eat, or you don't work and you don't eat. So he actually put the father, they said, some people, he was under shock. And he got 2 of the girls, the 2 girls, all the girls there that you see in the photo. And he put them with some aunties up north in a place called Antofagasta. And he got the little boy and he put it with a cousin. The oldest boy, he pretty much grew up on the streets. He was 12 on that photo, I believe. And the girl, she was actually given an adoption. She actually remembers the day in which she was placed, and this photo was actually that day when she was placed on adoption in this house. This is the other adopted son for that family. And she has the image of her father living, and she grabbing hold of his leg. She remembers a very tall man, and grabbing, now she's just 2.5, 2 and 8 months. You know, when you start looking back, what is your earliest memory? Isn't that a sad thing that your earliest memory is, Father, don't leave me, Father, don't leave me, Father, don't leave me. And the family tells us, the adopted family tells us that for weeks she will cry day and night, day and night, day and night, day and night. And I have to be extremely careful. But I will just say this. That Verónica had to go through circumstances and events that a little girl and a young girl ought not to go through ever. And I'll say also this, that in this world there is enough evil for you to have a piece of the cake and for me to have a piece of the cake too. And definitely, I can assure you that Verónica had her piece. And in an amazing way, she ended up in Australia at the age of 15. And she ended up in Australia with the adopted family. And that's where she actually met a very arrogant Spaniard. Because the Spaniards are the conquistadors. They were above South Americans, Central Americans, just side by side with Germans, of course, because we share an emperor. So obviously, very high-nosed Spaniard. And unbelievably, she actually fell in love, and I fell in love after I tried to kill her in a car accident. Not purposely. We had a car accident to kill her. And I proposed, and you cannot believe this, she actually said yes. We've been almost 20 years married now. We'll do 20 years soon. And the amount of recovery that the Lord gave this girl was unbelievable. One day, right after our marriage, she says to me, by the way, I met her in a nightclub. So though she was growing up in an Adventist adopted family, what is she doing in a nightclub when I met her? So right after our wedding, soon after, she says to me, the Lord, she said it in these words, the Lord is calling me back. Who is that? He's calling me back. Calling you back where? And who is he? He said, I want to go and I want to go to church. So we actually moved back to Spain. That was our first year of marriage. And I said, Spain, plenty of churches around here. My town has like 14. And he goes, not that one. I want to go on the Saturday. We call it Sábado. I said, really? So I was one of those very, very liberal husbands, like don't impose upon your wife and son. So she went to church. She left at 9 o'clock. She came back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm thinking, where you been? She said, I've been in church. In church, I'm going with you next week. I mean, what type of church is that? You've been there for 6 hours. There might be nutcases there. So just out of looking after my wife, I ended up going to church. She got baptized first, and some months after, I got baptized. Praise the Lord for that. And the Lord gave us beautiful children. Now, the photo that I'm going to show you here of our children is probably 5 years old. My son doesn't look like that anymore. He's just as tall as me. I don't fight with him in the carpet anymore. I'm still trying to utilize that subconscious mind when I used to beat him up when he was little, and hopefully that will stay in his mind, because I know that if he really puts an effort, he will knock me down. So those are my daughters. This is actually one of our foster children. This is a photo of 2012. So little Lucky is actually is 6 now. So one day, everything is going fine. The Lord has recovered my wife in an amazing way, has freed her from all the haunting, from all the ghosts of the past. And the Lord gave her some freedom in Christ, and it was amazing. Used her experiences to actually help others. It was just so beautiful. And one day, she receives an email, and in that email says, "Hi, my name is Ricardo. I am your brother. I want to get to know you." So my wife reads that, gets very, very tense, and deletes the email. And then she tells me, "I've just received an email from my blood brother." And I say, "How do you know he was your blood brother?" He identified himself and so on. "So what do you say to him?" I say, "I just deleted the email." So okay, 6 months later, the same email comes again. And she answers back and said, "Hi, this is Verónica. I'm here in Australia. I've got a family. Hope everything goes well." Boom, send it over. And she says to me, "These people never wanted anything to do with me. Never. I've got my family. I got you. I got my children. The Lord has given me a beautiful blessing. I don't need them." Then my mom in Spain had a neighbor. And this neighbor had a son in the United States of America. And the son was sending photos to his mom through something called, what my mom called it, Facebook. And she calls me straight away and said, "It takes ages for me to get photos of my grandchildren, but my neighbor is getting photos of the grandchildren every week. You need to get on something called Facebook, and your brother is going to go in something called Facebook, and you keep on sending me all those photos of my grandchildren." So I had a reputation. I was very much against Facebook, and I got a reputation. I said, I said to my wife, I'm not going to open a Facebook account. No way. I've got a reputation. You open it. So my wife opened the Facebook account, and we were sending photos to my brother, and my mom was happy. And one day, through Facebook, hi, my name is Ricardo. I am your brother. I want to get to know you. And there started a journey of communication. All of a sudden, another brother became a friend in Facebook. All of a sudden, the two sisters, and they started communicating. And the nights will be nights of tears, as my wife will come to the bedroom crying and say, they love me. See, in their mind, because the father actually remarried and had his own family, but in the mind of the four siblings, all the siblings, the baby was always missing. Always missing. They were never complete. They felt that there was always something missing. And interesting enough, Ricardo, the oldest one, had a girlfriend in a town called Curacaví. And when he was telling his own story to the girlfriend said to him, you mean that your sister, there's a sister here of yours, a little sister that goes to that school there, and the adopted family lives in this town. And you know that for months and months and months, until there was a court order placed upon him by I don't know who, this teenager, maybe 19, 20, he will actually walk at a distance from this girl every morning. He will be around the school just to make sure that nobody will hit her. And then he will actually walk her home at a distance. My wife never knew. Never knew. And many of us are far away from God, or think that we are far away from God, and God is at hand. Because the kingdom of God is at hand. And He is there at a distance, and He doesn't want to get close just in case you get upset, or just in case you... But He is there. He never left you, never forsook you. And my wife was saying, I need to go and see them. And she went. That's the photo of them without the mom now. That was 32 years after. So Ana, Ricardo, which was a policeman. Then you have Viviana, that came down from the United States of America to Chile for that reunion after 32 years. Then the youngest brother, the second youngest, and then my wife, which is the one in green to the right. And she will call me, and I said, what time is this? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. And what are you doing? She said, we're just crying and getting to know each other. It's just unbelievable. It's just so amazing. See them talking through Skype. They never grew up together. They have the same kind of mannerisms. They have the same jokes, the same sense of humor. It's just so creepy just to hear it. Because they never grew up together. And she says, I want to see my dad. And they say, he remarried, had all the children, things like that. I want to see him. I said, why do you want to see him? Because I want to tell him that it wasn't his fault. That everything will work together for good for those that love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. So they arranged a meeting. And some of the siblings still might have a little bit of resentment against the father. And my wife went there, and the man was there, very tall man. And my wife went and gave him a hug, and that guy was stiff as a stick, and gave him a kiss. And my wife said to her siblings, I want to be the answer to prayer to my mom. And they said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, I've got children of my own. My youngest is 6 at that time. And she goes, if I die now, my daughter is going to forget about me. What will be my prayer as a dying mother with little children? Father, I'm going. But can you please make sure that my children are there when I wake up? Wouldn't that be your prayer? So she said to the siblings, I want to be the answer prayer to my mother. And I want to be there. So she had the opportunity to witness to them. She came back to Australia. And as she came back to Australia, she was just telling everything to Teresa. And Teresa was just, sis, that was so amazing. I'm so happy for you, sis. And he was just crying and so on. And he said, oh, but sis, at the same time, I'm so jealous because I've got no one. Oh, no, don't say that, Teresa. You got me. I said, I know, sis. But you know what I mean. I've got no one. See, the story that Teresa knew was this. Her father, a doctor, died when she was 3 years of age. And she still had nightmares of getting hold of the hand of a half-family relative that as she was actually seeing the coffin of her mother at the age of 6 being laid down, also a doctor, 2 doctors. And then, through a whole scenario of circumstances, she ended up being adopted. And we're just going to say it this way. There's enough evil in this world for you to have your piece of the cake, for me to have mine, and I can assure you that the similar circumstances that my wife went through, Teresa unfortunately had to go through. And unfortunately, I'm saying it because she had a hard time to see that all things evil that happened to her will work together for good. So she had a very strong animosity against God. When she was in our house, we will kneel down to pray with the children. She will only kneel down for the sake of the children. She had a struggle. Will you love a God that has left you orphan and had allowed things to happen to you when nobody was there to defend you? When you were crying out and nobody will hear? So Teresa says, maybe your brother, the policeman in Chile, if I give you the name of that half-relative, maybe he can find her. Okay, I'll tell that to Ricardo. Give it to me. So my wife got the details and contact Ricardo. Ricardo in Santiago contacts some policemen down south in Chile, in a place called Puerto Saavedra. From there, there's 2 officials that knock at the door of this home. And when they knock at the door, the lady doesn't want to open. Because there's 2 policemen there, not because he has done anything wrong, but, you're expecting, well, something has happened, they're going to come and communicate me that, somebody has died or whatever in an accident. So she didn't want to open. They kept on knocking. Finally, she opened the door. And they said to her, there is somebody in Australia that wants to get in contact with you. And she goes, somebody in Australia? I don't know anyone in Australia. And then she goes, Teresa. It must be Teresa. She gave them the mobile number. Teresa got the mobile number, and she was going to call. And Verónica was so excited and said, okay, you talk to her, and afterwards, you talk to me. So all of a sudden, half an hour later, the phone rings. My wife goes to the office. This Teresa is ringing. And the only thing that I can hear from the living room is my wife saying, okay, calm down. I can't understand what you're saying. Calm down. Stop crying, please. Please, stop crying. What's happening? Please. So I did what any husband will do in that situation. I went to the office and I put my ear next to the phone also to find out. She was actually catching up with this half-relative. She was so happy to talk to her. And, oh, Teresa, many times I thought where she will be. Many times. And as the conversation went along, 10 minutes within the conversation, she drops this. I haven't seen your mother for a while. They told me she's been sick. And the first thing that Teresa thought is, oh, this lady must be already getting old, and she has already forgotten who she's talking to. And it said, just, excuse me, but do you know that my mother, you were there, I was holding your hand. My mother went down and she was buried, and my father died at the age of 3, and, oh, Teresa, nobody told you. I was like, what? They were not your parents. Your parents are not together, but they're actually alive. What? So this is the story. The mother actually fell pregnant from the mountains of Chile as a Mapuche Indian. Fell pregnant from this guy, and the shame of that forced her down to the town Now, she was deaf. She could not write or read Spanish, only Mapuche, and she could just understand by a few things because she could not hear. So she went to town early in the pregnancy, and she started cleaning the house of 2 doctors that could not have children. When they noticed that she was pregnant, the doctors started talking among themselves, and they organized to change the name and everything else. She delivered the baby, and before she knew it, they confronted her with the reality. They stole the baby. They stole all the documentations, etc., and they put all those figures, all those names, to them, and sent the Indian back up to the mountains. In God's mercy, 3 years later, he died. And then 3 years after, she died. Teresa grew up being an orphan with the 2 parents alive, the mother with a stolen baby, and the father finding out very soon after, when she came back, what had happened to her. And she was angry. She was upset. She said, how could God do this to me? All of a sudden, the person that you are not longer that person. And all the suffering, and all of a sudden, you've been having nightmares and all that, and your parents are alive, and your surname is not even your surname. You're not who you're meant to be. You discover at the age of 44 that you have parents, and they probably suffer because you were stolen from them. And time went by, week, and then another week, and another week. And between that anger, my wife could actually see something else. She started wondering, how will those elderly parents will be today? How old will be? How sick they are? So all of a sudden, this half-relative person was able to go up there and check on both of them. And he said, don't say anything. And then she said, they're fine. Your mother cannot understand many things because she's deaf, and I don't know how to communicate with her. But I told your father that you might be coming. Oh, I can't go there. And my wife says, sis, you need to go. Oh, I'm so nervous. Can you notice? She's changing. I'm so nervous. Oh, Verónica, you need to come with me. So that was another trip to Chile, another opportunity to see her own siblings anyhow. So she said, I'll go with you. So they went there. They arrived. And I want the people, just make sure the sound is on. Before you press the play, let me tell you that this is my brother-in-law, the policeman, recording. You'll see my wife there, and you'll see that half-relative. This is the moment when Teresa, at the age of 44, is going to embrace her father for the first time, and just discovered that she had a father, a living father, just 6 months prior. So if the sound is correct and so on, can you press play for us, please? That's my wife. He says something now.
Yo creo que no va a necesitar bastón ahora.
He actually said, why have you taken so long? Why have you taken so long? See, that half-relative said to him, your daughter is in Australia, she's coming. Now, for those people, Australia is somewhere above Santiago. The concept of Australia is, so he actually went, killed a chicken, prepared a dinner, and nobody showed up. The next day, he went and killed a chicken, and I hope he realized that it was going to take a little bit longer before he got rid of all his chickens. And the next one that I want to show you is a continuation. I want you to please pay attention on the hag. You have no idea, I know Teresa, you have no idea how much was in that hag. I know many things that happened to her. What she is actually showing in the hag, I can relate very much so because I know her. Can you play that one, please? Yeah, that one. Yeah, play. Everybody needs a father. Why are you taking so long? I want to tell you that it was an unbelievable experience. She brought some Australian souvenir for him. And the very next day, she was going to go to another part of the mountains. Let me tell you about that little old lady. She has a tremendous faith in God. Every Sunday, being winter, summer, wet, or whatever, she will cross the mountains. And she will go to a little tiny church just to pray to God. This lady, because she was deaf, because she could not read, because no matter how much she screamed, nobody will listen. She suffered a lot. And I'll let your imagination in that area because of the sake of the children. And her parents gave her some land, and the white man came and took the land away. So she had to actually live at the mercy of some neighbors. But for many, many years, she actually had a ritual. She will go down a little valley there, and then she will climb up a little hill where the gravel road will come to that village. And she will spend her time there with her hands risen up to heaven. And she will do like that for about 10 minutes, and then she will just go and do her duties. If you would have actually asked the neighbors, why was she doing that for so many years? The answer was, the neighbors would have told you some years ago, they would have told you this: she got a stolen child, and this is the only road that comes to the village. And every morning she goes there and looks down the road and prays to God, because she thinks that one day through that road God is going to bring her daughter back to her. I want you to notice something, because while my wife and the sister and Teresa, they're preparing in Puerto Saavedra to climb up the mountain, they had no idea of this routine. And they actually arrived at the time of that routine. There she is walking on that. Now there's the little road that is climbing up. And I want you to pray to play this one for us, please. On the day when she is going to look down the road. Oops. Try again. Down there is that half a relative that is telling her that the one that comes down is her daughter. It says, that's your daughter. Is she my daughter? Yes, that's your daughter. Remember, she's deaf. She hugs the mother.
Aquí es peor porque como ella no habla.
And then the mother realized that she's been recorded. And I want you to pay attention. She says this: she's from here. She's from here. Notice, please. Praise the Lord.
Está dando gracias a Dios. Qué evangélica.
I cannot even imagine what that lady went through. And in that moment, she's raising her arms. Did I say that Teresa was 44 years of age? For 44 years, that mother has been 10 minutes every day on that road, looking at that road for the day when God will bring her daughter. And you dare for a minute to think that if a human being can be so dedicated and with so passion and with so much love for his children, that God is, for some reason, less of an affectionate, less of a desiring father towards us? We come into a close and we read this. Now his oldest son, in the prodigal story, verse 25, now his oldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed a fatted calf. And the most tragic statement of the entire chapter, verse 28 says, but he was angry and will not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. The father prepared a party, and the angry brother did not go in. Did you get that? I hope you do, because our Father is preparing a party, the supper of the Lamb. And I don't care if you have transferred yourself from dairy ice cream to soy ice cream. The angry brother does not come in the Father's house. And I don't care what your diet is. I don't care what everything else is in your life or what you are building your Christianity upon. The angry brother did not come in the house. And it bothers me when I go to churches and people talk me about reforms and they are upset with their own children. And they are upset with their own sister because the sister did something to the parents. Or they are upset with that person back then and when. Because whatever they did to them, they did it to me too. And the Lord said to me, Oscar, all those reforms are good and true, but your anger won't come in. You better let it out, because it's not coming in. Because heaven, I wanted to keep it as heaven. The angry brother does not come in, friends. We've seen the two embraces, plus the embrace of the father in the return of the prodigal son. Do you think for a minute, and I've seen many of you crying when you saw the images of Teresa, do you think that the embrace of God is going to be less emotional than that? Do you think it's going to be less emotional when there is a father that has been waiting for you forever? And are you willing to sacrifice that embrace because of what somebody has done to you and the resentment that has placed in your heart? Are you willing to sacrifice the embrace of the Father and the welcoming into His house because you are angry with someone that has done something to you? The angry brother does not come in. And it is at this point when the speaker stops talking and the Holy Spirit brings that person into your head. That person that I have no idea who he is. Might be your son, might be your daughter, might be your ex-wife, your ex-husband, might be your abuser, might be the one that falsely accused you, might be whoever. And if the Holy Spirit has done that into your mind, how would I know about it? The angry brother, friends, does not come in. I don't want to lose that embrace. Do you know how heaven starts with? With the hug of the Father to us, His prodigals. That's how heaven starts with. I don't want to miss it. Will you? Make sure, if you know the number, give him or her a call. If you don't have the number, you know the address, give him or her a visit. Write a letter. Some of them might already be buried it's going to be too late. But at least sign a letter for the testimony of God that your anger will be left out. It is easier to believe in reforms than to actually go and forgive a person. It is easier to walk away than to confront the reality of the gospel. I want all of us to be embraced by our Heavenly Father. I hope it is your prayer and your decision to. Thank you for your attention. May the Lord bless this church. Amen.